There is a moment, silent and imperceptible to most, when the soul hovers between worlds, untethered, luminous and trembling with the weight of its past. It seeks return, it longs for rebirth. But not all are welcomed back. According to Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, the soul's journey through the spiritual realms is not automatic, nor is rebirth a rite. It is a resonance. Rebirth requires harmony between one spiritual frequency and the lessons still awaiting embodiment. When the soul is rejected from reincarnation, it is not punishment, it is reflection, a mirror held by the universe, revealing where misalignment lingers. This moment of rejection is not dramatic nor punitive. It is subtle, like a breath withheld at the edge of sleep. The soul, having passed through the threshold of physical death, stands before the gateway of choice, evaluation, and potential return. And yet, in this sacred stillness, it finds itself without a passage forward. The energies do not match. The call to return is not answered. The earth does not open its arms. Why? Cayce's readings unveil a profound truth. Reincarnation is a response to need, to readiness, to unfinished vibrations. It is the soul's own echo that summons the next embodiment. When the echo fades, when the lessons meant to be lived have not yet been fully absorbed, the soul is held back, not by force but by frequency. The vibratory mismatch becomes the guardian of the gates. This liminal state between incarnations yet not moving forward can be disorienting. The soul retains memory, intention, and longing, but it lacks the clarity that only embodiment can bring. It watches time unfold without participating. It is witness but not actor, seer but not experiencer. And in that space, something extraordinary happens. Without the veil of the body, the soul begins to see with luminous eyes. It reviews its karmic trail not from judgment, but from wisdom. The choices, the fears, the forgotten acts of love. They all return like ripples in an eternal pond. The soul begins to feel what it caused others to feel, not as guilt but as resonance. Empathy becomes currency. Awareness becomes movement. But awareness alone does not guarantee return. What is required is intention, purity of purpose, and alignment with Earth's vibratory needs. Some souls are rejected not because they are unworthy, but because they are not yet refined. The Earth, as Cayce described, is a school of soul refinement. To enter again, the soul must be willing not only to live, but to learn, to lose, to love in the thick of contrast. Not all are ready, and so they wait. In this waiting, some souls linger close to the physical world. They whisper into the dreams of those they once knew. They appear in the corners of vision, in the hush before waking. They are not lost, but paused. The journey continues, but not yet in flesh. Others ascend to higher realms of preparation, to sanctuaries of insight, where they reweave their inner fabric, recalibrating for another life. These realms are not places, but states of peace, of remembrance, of silent readiness. Edgar Cayce did not speak of heaven and hell in static terms. He spoke of movement, of evolution. The rejection from rebirth is not an exile. It is a call to deepen, to remember what was forgotten while in form. And so I ask you now, what frequencies do you carry within? Are you aligned with the path your soul came to walk? Or do you too hover unknowingly between intention and embodiment? If these questions stirred something within you, subscribe to the channel and continue this journey with us. Each chapter ahead will bring you closer to the mystery of your soul's eternal path. The soul is not a blank slate. It is a library. Within it reside echoes of lifetimes lived, choices made, and lessons absorbed across the ages. Edgar Cayce taught that the soul carries every experience, every emotional imprint, not as weight but as resonance. These resonances are not forgotten after death. They become the blueprint of the soul's next step. When a soul is rejected from rebirth, it is often because its blueprint does not align with the present opportunities on Earth. The soul might seek return, but the energy required to integrate with a new body, a new context, is not yet coherent. Like a key not yet shaped to fit the lock of time, it waits, it listens, it learns from the silence. Cayce described the spiritual realms as vibratory fields, realms of consciousness layered in complexity. As the soul traverses these dimensions, it is drawn not by choice alone, but by its vibration. In these spaces, the law of resonance governs all movement. Souls of similar frequency gather, teach, reflect, and evolve together. There is no judgment, only matching. If the soul harbors unresolved fears, deeply rooted anger, or attachment to its last incarnation, its frequency becomes clouded. These energies must be softened, transmuted, and understood before the next rebirth can occur. The soul, in its waiting, is not idle. It is immersed in the work of remembrance and purification. Some souls become aware of the deeper reasons for their rejection. They begin to see the ripple effects of lives where compassion was withheld, where choices were driven by survival, not wisdom. And yet, even in that awareness, there is no condemnation. Only the knowing that evolution requires embodiment, and embodiment requires readiness. In these moments, the soul begins to practice intention at a higher level. It seeks alignment with Earth's current vibrations, which are always changing. The collective human field influences the availability of incarnational opportunities. If a soul's lessons no longer serve the evolution of the whole, it must reorient. It must become relevant to the now. This is a sacred process. Imagine a soul once devoted to conquest, power, and material glory. It carried these patterns for centuries. But now Earth calls for empathy, sustainability, and union. That soul must transform before it can return. And so it studies from afar, absorbing the frequencies of peace, learning from the lives of others, remembering what it feels like to nurture instead of dominate. Only then can the soul find resonance with a new incarnation. Cayce spoke often of the Akashic records, a field of universal memory where all thoughts, actions, and intentions are preserved. It is from this field that souls reflect on their own journey. The rejection from rebirth is not hidden from them. It is revealed with exquisite clarity. And in that knowing, the soul chooses to rise, to refine, to remember. Some remain in that in-between for what we would call decades, even centuries. But time is not measured there. What matters is readiness. What matters is transformation. In that waiting, the soul learns patience. It learns compassion not just for others, but for itself. It remembers that life is not a race. It is a spiral. Every cycle brings new depth, new light, new opportunity to love more fully, to forgive more completely, to create more consciously. This is the deeper meaning behind rebirth. Not return for the sake of living, but return for the sake of becoming. Let this understanding settle in your awareness. Your life now is not random. It was chosen because your frequency matched this moment. And somewhere, other souls wait, not because they are less, but because they are still becoming what Earth now requires. The journey is infinite, but readiness is the threshold. Between one incarnation and the next, there exists a sacred interval, a space Cayce referred to as the interlife realms. Here, the soul is neither bound by body nor free of responsibility. It is immersed in vibration, surrounded by intelligences that reflect its own essence back to it. There are no lies in this realm, only truth and the willingness or reluctance to see it. When a soul is not permitted immediate return to the physical plane, it does not wander aimlessly. It is guided, always. The guides, beings of higher frequency who have long since completed the earthly curriculum, surround the soul in a council of light. This is not a court of judgment. It is a mirror of consciousness. The soul sits before its own truth, and the guides ask not, "What did you do?" but, "What have you learned?" This council is a place of sacred remembering. The soul is shown the full arc of its past life, not just the actions, but the intentions, the subtle thoughts, the vibrations it contributed to the human field. The soul sees how a single act of kindness rippled across generations. It sees how a single moment of cruelty planted seeds of confusion. And most of all, it sees the gaps, those places where love could have emerged, but didn't. These gaps are not shamed. They are invitations. They become the curriculum for what comes next. But if the soul is not yet able to integrate these insights into intention, it cannot yet incarnate. Earth is not a place for spectators. It is a crucible for transformation, and entering it without alignment would serve no one, not the soul, not the planet. Some souls resist. They cling to their former identity, to attachments that no longer exist. They do not want to re-enter a body that might suffer, feel loss, or confront shame. They want comfort, not growth. But growth is the sacred purpose, and so the return is postponed. Cayce often emphasized the role of choice in the soul's evolution. Even when rebirth is delayed, the soul is never coerced. It is invited, it is reminded. And slowly, through the grace of the interlife realms, it begins to soften. The soul might then be led through what Cayce described as soul schools, not institutions but vibrational spaces where energies are rebalanced. Here the soul studies archetypes, emotions, energetic law. It observes human life through new eyes. It watches lovers forgive. It watches enemies reconcile. It watches children be born in silence and die in radiance. It learns, layer by layer, what it means to be fully alive. Eventually, the soul's own resonance begins to shift. The resistance fades. The longing to serve, to heal, to complete its karmic web begins to stir. And when that longing becomes intention, and that intention becomes harmony, the gates to rebirth open once more. But not before. The earth, though veiled in duality, is sacred. To return is to step back into the fire of forgetting, and to remember once more. That journey is not granted lightly. It is a contract made in light, witnessed by guides, signed by vibration, sealed with the soul's consent. When a soul is rejected from rebirth, it is not an error, it is a refinement, a sacred pause, a chance to become more than what was, a preparation to walk again with eyes open, heart willing, and spirit awakened. And so if you've ever wondered why some seem born with ancient wisdom, with eyes that remember, perhaps they are the ones who waited, who listened, who chose to return only when ready to carry the light they could finally hold. Not all souls return quickly, but those who do return with purpose. The earth does not call every soul. It sings only to those whose frequencies harmonize with her current rhythm. When a soul is rejected from rebirth, it is often because that resonance is not yet achieved. And so, a sacred silence follows, pregnant with possibility, charged with memory. Cayce revealed that Earth is not merely a planet, it is a consciousness, an evolving entity with its own path of ascension. She breathes, she vibrates, she remembers. To reincarnate here is to enter a living being, a school of emotion, matter, and spirit. Souls must be aligned with her lessons to return. Each age on Earth holds a different curriculum. There are times when courage is needed, and others when stillness is the greater teacher. Souls are not rejected arbitrarily. They are held until their vibration meets the precise doorway Earth opens at that moment. These are vibrational gateways, constantly shifting, responding to the collective evolution of humanity. A soul, for instance, may have mastered strength through conflict but not yet tenderness through surrender. If Earth is entering a cycle of compassion, the soul must first awaken that resonance within. Otherwise it would distort the lesson, not amplify it. This waiting is often misunderstood as stagnation, but it is, in truth, sacred refinement. In the realms between lives, the soul continues to evolve, not through action but through reflection. It is here that the soul begins to dissolve the false beliefs gathered through lifetimes. It surrenders the stories that once defined it and begins to bathe in pure being. Edgar Cayce spoke of these interdimensional spaces not as prisons, but as temples. Realms where time bends and light becomes the teacher. The soul is not alone. It is surrounded by others who wait, who observe, who remember. Together, they create currents of learning, sharing vibrational insights that transcend words. In these temples, the soul may also begin to form intentions for the next life, not as plans carved in stone, but as seeds of possibility. Who will I become? What will I heal? What service will I offer? These questions arise not from ego, but from alignment. The desire to return becomes a sacred yearning, not to escape the spirit world, but to complete what was begun. But not every soul chooses Earth again. Some feel called to other spheres, other worlds, other expressions of divine unfolding. Cayce described such movements as horizontal expansion, not better, not worse, but different. Each soul follows the thread of its own becoming. The rejection from Earth is not an exile, it is often a redirection. And for those who do return, something profound has shifted. Their incarnation is no longer driven by karma alone, but by dharma, by sacred purpose. These are the ones who arrive with light in their touch, silence in their eyes, and wisdom far beyond their years. They come not to learn only, but to transmit. They are the echoes of waiting fulfilled. Yet even they were once held back. Even they once trembled in the vastness between lives, unsure of when the call would come. Their return was not faster, it was deeper. They did not push the door open, they became the key. So if the soul is turned away from birth, it is not because it is unworthy. It is because it is still being shaped into the medicine it must one day carry. The universe does not rush what is sacred. To be held in waiting is to be wrapped in the arms of divine timing. It is to trust that when the moment arrives, the earth will call your name, and the gate will open not because you begged, but because you became. There comes a moment when silence breaks. The soul, having traversed the corridors of memory, of light, of longing, feels a shift. A pulse from the earth reaches across dimensions. It is not loud, but unmistakable. It is not a command, but an invitation. The gateway opens, not because the soul forced its return, but because it became worthy of it. Edgar Cayce described this as a moment of sacred synchronization. When the soul's vibration, Earth's evolving frequency, and the collective need converge. This is when rebirth is no longer a possibility. It is destiny. The souls who return after rejection are never the same. They carry a silence deeper than memory and a light that no shadow can erase. They come with purpose, not confusion. With remembrance, not amnesia. They have passed through the crucible of waiting and emerged not desperate but refined. And the world feels them. They may not speak often of what they know, but their presence changes rooms. They listen with the patience of lifetimes. They love with the clarity of those who have seen beyond death. They walk with humility because they remember the silence of being denied the path they now walk. These are the souls Cayce referred to when he spoke of the chosen ones, not chosen by favor, but by frequency. Chosen because they chose themselves in the stillness. They did not run from their past. They did not resist their refinement. They waited until they became the answer to the world's prayer. Many arrive as healers, teachers, artists, or guides. Others work silently, changing lives with a glance, a gesture, a word that echoes in another's soul. They are not here to be seen. They are here to awaken, and their very breath reminds others of home. But returning is not the end. It is the beginning of the true work. Cayce emphasized that souls who come back after such a pause often face intense lives, not as punishment, but as purpose. Their presence disturbs stagnation. They break old patterns, not just their own, but those of families, communities, and systems. Their life may seem heavy, but it is deeply orchestrated. Every challenge becomes a portal for transformation, and yet they are not alone. Their guides walk closely. The memory of the interlife realms lingers in their dreams, in the spaces between thoughts. They know that life is not random. They trust timing. They honor pain. They do not seek escape. They seek depth. To understand the rejection from rebirth is to understand the immense love embedded in spiritual timing. It is to recognize that the universe does not release a soul into form until it can serve the whole with clarity. Each delay is mercy. Each silence is a lesson in readiness. And when a soul returns, it brings with it all it has learned beyond the veil. So if you feel out of place in this world, if you've always known things before they were spoken or carried wounds that felt ancient, it may be because you waited. You remembered. You returned not to find yourself, but to be yourself in a world that forgot. Honor that. You are not behind. You are precisely on time. And now, your steps are sacred. Your voice, a vibration shaped in realms of light. You are not here by chance. You are here because the earth opened again, and this time you were ready to enter as fire wrapped in form, as soul awakened into skin. If these words touched your soul, subscribe to the channel and click on the video that just appeared on your screen. It was chosen especially for you. I know you'll love it.